Hello everyone, this is POW Ponder on Weather. In this update, we're going to be talking about an Arctic blast with a snowstorm, as many of you will experience your first freeze and frost of the season next week. So if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. Good morning everyone, this is your Saturday, October 30th update. And what we're looking at here is the overall water vapor imagery to kind of depict on where the dry air is and where some of the moisture is still left over. It's been an incredibly active week for much of the country. Things are starting to settle down for the most part this weekend as we're kind of in between systems. As we look at the overall water vapor imagery, we've got another atmospheric river kind of lurking offshore. That's going to be impacting for much of the West Coast starting on Monday, as drier air today is filtering on the backside. And we do have some coastal flood advisories in place for places like Delaware into New Jersey, as we do have a pretty high impact event for still with some very heavy rain in portions of Rhode Island today and Massachusetts. So let's take a look at the overall hazard map, and that's, again, there's not much going on. This is a welcome sight to see as things are really started to settle down. I appreciate, we literally added 10,000 new followers to the channel in the month of October. So I appreciate all you guys watching. I do daily updates on this channel, and my job is simply to protect life and property with advanced warning. So I give you ample amount of time to protect your area and warn you for the potential dangers ahead. So today, again, there's not much going on across the country, which is a good thing. But you can definitely see the area of interest today is going to be off the eastern seaboard, where we do have some coastal flood advisories. And I am expecting some very heavy rain to be impacting these areas as we go into portions of Delaware, into South Jersey, going into portions of Rhode Island today, parts of Massachusetts, into portions of Maine, where they do have some flash flood watches and coastal flood advisories in place. So, but this morning we're waking up to about 6% of the country of the lower 48 experience some freezing temperatures as things start to really settle down in the midsection of the country. Places like Kansas, places like Oklahoma are waking up to their first frost of the season with those frost advisories in place. Kind of a light frost for those areas if things have kind of cleared out. Calm winds is really starting to settle down to the surface. But overall, about 6% of the country is waking up to freezing temperatures, and a lot of that is going to change in a big way as we go through the course of the week, and we'll go over all the details here. Here's today. Here's the setup for the HRRR model, where some of the heavier rains are going to be. As this upper level low will start to wind down, we'll start to have kind of sporadic showers still impacting parts of the Ohio valleys and parts of Florida here. But yes, the main impact today is going to be along the coastal regions, as this low will continue to travel further off into the east. So yeah, the bullseye kind of really is more or less Rhode Island today, Massachusetts, as we're getting very heavy rain going to be impacting those areas into places like Vermont and New Hampshire and southern portions of Maine, as we do see some sporadic showers still left over into portions of Washington and northern California. But for the most part, a good chunk of the country is going to be experiencing a really nice day ahead, and really tomorrow as well. So let's take a look at the overall map for tomorrow. We can definitely see a cold front going to be lurking, and that's going to be the game changer for this week. Now, with this cold front, a lot of the cold air is going to be lagging behind the cold front. So it's going to take its sweet time throughout the week to sag further and further south. But out ahead of it, we do have some sporadic snow showers going to be in the upper elevation areas into portions of Wyoming and going into Colorado today, and portions of Nebraska. Again, these are more or less elevated mountain type mixed precipitation. This is mixed precipitation. More or less your snow is going to be falling into places like Wyoming, as that same system for tomorrow will be continue to push further and further off the northeast coast. And eventually, as we get to late in the day on Sunday, this will be finally moved away, as we'll look for the north, as cold air will start to funnel down and penetrate much of the U.S. going ahead for this week. So let's take a look at the setup for Monday as we go into that November 1st, as we transition out of October, start going into November. We see that cold front lurking in portions of North Texas. There's not much cold air with it right now. All the cold air is lurking behind it, as yes, that atmospheric river of moisture that I showed you at the beginning of the video will start impacting much of the West Coast. So the rains do come back for portions of Washington and Oregon and Northern California again. And then they start to lessen as they move towards the interior regions. And then you do have some sporadic snow showers going to be breaking out. But the rain will start to sag a little bit further south in portions of Oklahoma as we get into the day on Monday, and then kind of sporadic mixed precipitation into portions of Kansas. I'm not really expecting too much snow on Monday. So, but the temperatures, a drastic difference. This morning, 6%. By the time we get into Monday morning, on the blend of all the models here, about 27% of the country is going to be waking up to those freezing temperatures. So that's going to be a dramatic flip. And much of Montana and parts of the Dakotas and to Wyoming, going into Colorado, as that colder air continues to sag further south in Nebraska, getting into portions of Kansas, where some of you are experiencing those light frosts this morning. You're probably going to be experiencing a freeze by the time we get into Monday morning. And then there's your temperatures for Iowa and going into Missouri, as you see that colder air continues to sag a little bit further south. But here's the setup for this week. We're predominantly over the next 5 days from Tuesday through Sunday, we're going to have a trough that's going to be setting up for much of the Northeast and the midsection of the country, and with the ridge going to be building in on the backside, and that's going to continue pushing off to the southeast as we go throughout the week. So your colder temperature is going to be right in this boundary here of your below average anomalies, and this part of the country is going to be experiencing your colder conditions this week. So here's the temperature anomalies as we go into that Tuesday time frame. Notice the cold front. It really doesn't go anywhere, right? It continues to lurk, just to slowly sag south. So there's going to be a big temperature difference between central Texas and South Texas and to the north. And so that cold air will start to impact Kansas and Oklahoma and to Texas. A lot of the cold air will kind of miss out in much of the West Coast and much of the Southwest, as it's really confined to more or less Colorado and eastward. And eventually it'll shift southeast and then northeast as well as we go throughout the week. But there's your temperatures as you wake up on Tuesday morning, with now 30% of the country experiencing those freezing temperatures. So definitely some of you guys, this is going to be your first frost and freeze of the season. So yeah, definitely be on a lookout to protect your plants and anything that might have tender vegetation that you don't want to have damaged. So I'm giving you plenty of advanced warning with this particular system, as this will continue to dive further south as we get into the week. So, but eventually there's going to be enough cold air in place where some of this is going to transfer into snow into portions of Colorado as we get into that Tuesday time frame. The rain will start breaking out in Kansas and Oklahoma, and then late in the day will start, more or less Tuesday night, will start impacting portions of Texas, as that colder air will continue to start to almost kind of win over by then, as that colder air continues to sag further south. There's your temperature anomalies. By the time we get into Wednesday afternoon, you can see the cold air takes its sweet time, right? It just continues to sag, just oozing down further south, but amplifying over the top. So now we get those 20-degree below average temperatures in Kansas, filtering into Oklahoma, into Texas. Now we're talking places like Missouri, and Arkansas is going to be getting into the action of some of that colder air as we wake up on the day on Wednesday morning. Now we're talking 36% of the country experiencing those freezing temperatures. So yeah, so further and further off as we get throughout the week, or you're going to experience the benefits of this colder air mass, and these frost and freeze warnings are going to be taking place for much of parts of the lower 48 as we get into the week. So now places in Missouri and Arkansas will start seeing some of those frost and freeze advisories starting to impact those areas, as that's on Wednesday. And then there's the rain showers as we get into on Wednesday. I think it's going to be a nasty day for much of Oklahoma, and especially into North Texas, as that colder air will continue to drain south. You have those overriding conditions, but I'm expecting a pretty rainy day in North Texas on Wednesday, and then on the backside where it's going to be cold enough as that cold air continues to sag further south. Some of that's going to transfer into snow. You can actually see where the cold air is going to be. I mean, these blue lines here depict where you're going to be below freezing during the afternoon hours, and then to the south of that, it's mainly going to be all rain. And then some of that could mix over to a 33, 34, 35 degrees snow with a kind of a wet snow in places. But as we get into the day on Thursday, finally that cold air starts to win out for much of the south. So now it's going to be a raw, nasty day with high temperatures struggling to try to get out of the 40s in parts of North Texas here, as those 20-degree below average temperature anomalies begin to take over, and the portions of Louisiana, into Arkansas, into Mississippi and Alabama, start creeping into portions of Georgia here, into Tennessee, into Kentucky here, into West Virginia, and start getting into the Carolinas regions with some of that colder air. But yes, by Thursday, now we're talking 40% of the country below freezing temperatures as you wake up, with much of the reds popping up for a good chunk of the country, as that colder temperatures will start impacting Texas Panhandle. Now these are your highly more populated areas. Obviously, if you live in some of those low-lying areas away from the bigger cities, you could easily drop another 5 to 10 degrees from what you're seeing right now. But yeah, so for example, 47 in DFW, you could easily be in the 40s or upper 30s by the time we get into Thursday morning for parts of North Texas, as much of you will experiencing a freeze in much of Kansas and Oklahoma and to Missouri, as that cold air will continue to drain. Now portions of the southeast will start getting into the action of that colder air as it really funnels into the mid-Atlantic states as well as the Northeast by then. But there's your prospects of rain as we get to the day on Thursday. Again, that cold air continues to drain a little bit further south. We'll see some transition into snow, probably breaking out in the Texas Panhandle. You may see some flurries or two in portions of, say, Lubbock and some of these areas in West Texas. Is definitely not out of the question, but it's not going to be a big event or any stretch of imagination. It's just going to be a nasty, raw day, and much of cloudy day, raw day, windy day, wind chills in the 30s and 40s during the daytime hours in these areas of Texas, and get into the portions of Arkansas. But yeah, there's your temperature anomalies as you go into Friday, as that colder air will continue to drain all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley here, all the way down into New Orleans, now Mobile, Alabama, even Florida will start getting to the action as that cold air continues to sink south. There's the ridge starting to build over the top as we get deeper into the end of the week by then, as I showed you at the beginning of the video, with that ridge starting to filter in and moving southeast over time. But yes, there's the setup by Friday morning as we bottom out at 45%. So literally this morning we go from 6% of the country below freezing, and now we're going to 45% of the country by the time we wake up on Friday, November 5th, experiencing the first freeze of this. I mean, some of you have experienced your first freeze already, but many more areas will experience your first freeze by the time we get into Friday, November the 5th timeframe, as that colder air continues to drain a little bit further off to the south. And there's your rain prospects as we get into on Friday for the portions of the southeast. Now some of that cold air will start mixing into portions of the Appalachians and the higher elevations here, as that cold air will continue to drain further south. There's the temperature anomalies by the time we get into Saturday afternoon. Now the cold air continues to drain further south. Now we're talking central Florida, even parts of southern Florida. We'll start seeing those below average temperature anomalies. So yeah, much of the country is still going to be impacted from this strong cold front that's on the table, as that ridge will start to build in further off next weekend from the north, and that will go to the southeast as we go through next weekend. There's your snow line by the time we get into Saturday. As this will continue, we'll have a low off the coast, a rain event more or less into the I-95 corridor, and the upper regions, elevations, West Virginia, portions of PA, maybe upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate, into portions of Maine here. Well, that will be predominantly your snow line going forward. But then Saturday, still 42% of the country experiencing those below freezing temperatures as you wake up on Saturday. So it's going to be a cold week, a drastic difference from what you saw last week to what's going to be coming up on the table for the week ahead. So here's your rain prospects for the week. Yeah, there's your atmospheric river coming back in play for much of the West Coast here. You can see the red here with this graph at the bottom. That's anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain going to be throughout the week for much of the West Coast again, as some of those heavier rains will be over portions of Oklahoma and the North Texas, getting into East Texas. Some of this will be in the form of snow here in the backside of Colorado and Nebraska, as well as Kansas, as the heavier rains set up over portions of Tennessee and get into Kentucky and to West Virginia and then along the coast again with some very heavy rain, another 2 to 4 inches coming back for the Northeast. You can't just get a break. I mean, it just keeps adding up in places like New York City. I mean, we're just already 12, 14 inches above average for the year. I mean, it just continues to add to those totals. There's more or less going to be your snow track for the week, as it's going to be mainly flying in the higher elevations. It'll eventually transfer into portions of Denver, portions of Nebraska, portions of Kansas here, getting into the Texas Panhandle. You may see some flurries or two. I think this is going to be amplified as we get closer in, as it really the models are having a hard time picking up how much of this is going to be snow. But this is predominantly going to be your track for this week, as this will continue to drain and more or less be in the Appalachians, into the higher regions up here, and more or less into the south side of the I-95 corridor is going to be just all a chilly rain for you guys. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get all my daily updates, and hit the like as well. So catch me in the next video where I protect you before and after the storm.